when a race car spun out of control during the ARCA 200. The subsequent crash caused a member of the Speedway medical staff, EMT Mike Staley, to be struck by a car. Most of this footage was taped on that day.
Michael was thrown approximately 25 feet through the air. He looked like a rag doll.
The driver Mike had been helping passed out at the scene. Rescue workers rushed to aid both of them, and the critically injured driver trapped in car 95.
When I first got out of the ambulance, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to find Mike dead. I could smell flesh burning, and his left arm was pinned up under the exhaust manifold. I've known Mike for 13 years, and it was a very gut-wrenching experience.
Mike is one of my best people. He's a good EMT. But I really couldn't believe that it had happened.
He had serious burns of the arm, left forearm in particular, abrasions, bruising. And under these circumstances, I had to be concerned about the potential for a brain injury.
You want the helicopter. Okay, helicopter guy.
I had the most sickening feeling I think I've ever had in my life. That this was real serious and he may not live. And then I kept asking myself if I did the right thing on getting him down the hill as quick as I did.
The driver that Michael was treating went down, so we had to send somebody to him.
But that driver was not seriously injured.
We estimated that the car that hit the car that he was standing next to may well have been going in excess of 160 miles an hour at that time.
Get a collar on his neck. Let's get some oxygen on him.
In our profession, we don't actually see the incident happen. This time I was sitting roughly 50 yards from it, and it was somebody that I know and they're very good friends with, and it was very hard.
The medical helicopter was stationed only seconds away.
He had a very badly comminuted compound fracture. What that means is the fracture was open, and the bones were now exposed to the dirt on the ground, and to some extent the burns suffered by the heat of the impact.
We cut his pants off and put the mask suit on in anticipation of possible internal injuries.
While another rescue crew tried to get the critically injured driver out of car 95 and stabilized, Mike was packaged for the first helicopter transport. Dr. Steve Levine was supervising.
The most fascinating thing was how regimented Mike was at the time of his accident. Although he knew he had been badly hurt, he had his wits about him enough to be able to tell me what was bothering him and responded very, very appropriately to the questions that I asked him.
Troy Wilrick was the helicopter paramedic.
I've known Mike for a number of years. He's always a very outgoing person, easy to get along with. When we knew that he was the one that was hit, it made it that much tougher to try to be able to work on him and keep your emotions down and deal with that later.
There's not too many circumstances that this would ever happen again anywhere, that within 17 seconds of the injury you would have a trauma surgeon, a respiratory therapist, and 5 paramedics to the patient in 17 seconds. It doesn't happen.
Once I received him in the helicopter, he started to wake up and now would respond to me. I said, Mike, can you hear me? Once he looked at me and said, Troy, okay, I know who you are. It was a sigh of relief that he was not critically injured, but serious.
The driver of number 95, who had been trapped in his car, subsequently died of injuries suffered in the crash that day. But Mike's life was spared.
Having witnessed the accident, I was amazed that he was going to survive. The fact of the matter is that he's extremely lucky. There's no question about that.
Mike arrived at Halifax Medical Center with 2 broken legs, 2 smashed kneecaps, second and third degree burns, and a left arm so badly destroyed, doctors feared they might have to amputate.
He needed immediate attention to this arm, requiring irrigation and cleansing of the wound and stabilization of the fracture.
He wanted to make sure before he went into surgery that somebody was with his mother, and so I told him that I would go stay with her in the waiting room until he got out of surgery.
When I first saw him, he was wrapped in blankets, and it was very scary. He knew me and seemed to be alert. And he said, "Don't worry, Mom, I'm going to be all right."
I never felt a black shadow of death over me. I only tried to absorb the positive thoughts of the people wanting to absolutely do their best for me so I would live. If I lost my arm, I would have lost my career in the fire service.
Mike's battle to recover was aided by an outpouring of support from his community.
The fact that the elementary school students remembered firefighter Mike when I introduced a life-saving program called Learn Not to Burn just made me feel great. Receiving cards from friends that I made at the National Fire Academy 8 years ago and said, we're praying for you, Mike. We're thinking about you. Huh?
For 5 months, Mike spent nearly 6 hours a day in physical therapy under the guidance of Randy Thomas.
He had an incredible attitude. He told me that he expected 110% out of me. He said, "I'm not unreasonable. If you're having a bad day, 103% will be fine. But other than that, that's what he expected." And he has certainly given 110% every day. I have no questions about his recovery.
I think that we are all struck by the degree that he was motivated to go through this process and to not dwell on what had happened to him.
8 months after the accident, Mike Staley has succeeded in healing well enough to lead a fairly normal life. And his mother, Josephine, is very grateful.
I do think it's a miracle. He's a hard worker. If he's going to start something, he's going to finish it. And I think he's honest. And he's very loyal to his friends.
I'm looking forward to the day that Mike can come back to the Speedway and function in his old capacity. The seat's still open for him to occupy, and I'm sure that he will someday. I don't think that this incident has deterred him.
The scariest moment was not having control of my life. Instead of taking care of someone and providing them the best quality of life possible, now the roles were reversed. I'm a patient.
With injuries this serious, Mike's dreams of returning to work in fire and rescue may be too ambitious. He may never recover enough mobility to pass the fire department's rigorous physical exam. But he refuses to give up.
My primary goal that I have every day is to work out to be even better than I was prior to the accident. To be able to pass the physical agility test with our department. And to do that, I'm working out 110% to be back on the job, to give that best to my community.